All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Girls in STEAM in the Room Researching Bodies. My name is Hiba, and I'll be the host for today's panel. We might give one more minute to kind of let everybody come in. While everyone's coming in the YouTube comments, if you wanted to let us know where you're coming from or where you're joining from today, that would be awesome. We're all very excited to have you to our event today, and we'll give it another couple seconds before we begin. All right, we will get started. Hello again, everyone, for those of us joining now, and welcome to Researching Bodies. My name is Hiba, and I'll be the host for today's panel. I would like to begin by gratefully acknowledging that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We will start today with a quick introduction from our amazing group of mentors, followed by a hosted discussion. If you have questions for the mentors, please feel free to put those in the chat at any time. Our technician today is Courtney, who will be monitoring the chat. If you have any technical issues, they would be happy to assist. We ask that you keep the comments in the chat and questions section respectful and relevant to the topics being discussed. Now it's time to meet our mentors. Let's start by going around and doing a brief introduction right before we jump into those questions. Mentors, if you could turn on your cameras, we'll bring you up on the screen. Awesome. Hello, everybody. So we are so excited to have you joining us today. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. So we're looking forward to chat with you. So why don't we get each of you to go around and let us know your name, maybe a little bit about what you do, your job, and the thing that you love the most about your career. So Ariana, you're on my screen first, so you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name's Ariana. I'm a recent graduate of the neuroscience graduate program at the University of British Columbia. I have my master's from there. And now I am working as a research communications coordinator for the Kids Brain Health Network, which is an entity that provides funding for research for kids who have neurodevelopmental disorders. What I love most about being a science communicator is that you have a wide breadth of knowledge that you can learn about and that you're not just really sticking to one topic. So you get to learn something new every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Laura, you're next on my screen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura. I am Mexican, and I'm on my third year of my PhD program. I'm recently becoming a PhD candidate. My research is in blood stem cells. So they're the stem cells that can replicate in your body endlessly. And these cells help you with your immune system and your body health in general. And what I love about my work is just going into the lab and learning about different stuff each and every day and making small discoveries to help my research and overall the scientists around the world. Did I miss anything? No, I'm in UBC. I'm a student from UBC, but I work at BC Cancer Research Center that is right by BGH. And living in a scientific environment and talking to scientists is honestly so captivating. You get to know and learn a new thing every single day.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. And then last but not least, I have Ghana on my screen.
Hello, my name is Ghana, and I am a postdoctoral fellow in biochemistry. I study human proteins in human body, which are important for health. And I'm kind of trying to get a really close-up look at those proteins and understand their structure better, so that drugs like against all the human disease can be designed afterwards. And I totally agree with Laura that being in the scientific environment is such a beautiful thing, there are so many interesting people around, people to talk to, people to learn from. And I would just add that, like, another part that makes me excited about being a scientist is that every day is different. Every day you are doing something different, different experiments, different, conversation with your colleagues. Everything is like none of the days are the same. So if you are looking for adventures of this type, go into science.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I think it's so interesting. Here in our panel today, we have a master's graduate, we have a PhD candidate, and we have a postdoc candidate, I believe. So we have people from like all over science and all over different levels in their career, which I think is awesome. So we'll get started with a couple of questions, but I just want to remind our audience, if you did have questions for mentors, please do not hesitate to just pop them in the chat, and our lovely mentors are very excited to answer your questions. And just a reminder to keep them relevant and respectful to the discussions that are going on. So I am very, very interested in hearing about kind of how you guys got started in your career and your jobs, and what you guys do kind of day to day. I know, Agana, you had mentioned it doesn't look very typical, but yeah, I'm very excited to hear about it. So why don't we go the other way around? So Ghana, we'll start with you. How did you exactly get started in the career that you're in right now? And yeah, how did you get started in research?
Okay, so I was always interested in biology since I was in high school. So I even went to the boarding school, which was specialized in biology and chemistry. But what was like, but I was just, studying biology. I wasn't doing experiments or anything. I was very, very much interested. But then when I went to college, it was back in Ukraine. When I went to the university in Ukraine, I started looking for opportunity to get into the lab because a lot of other students would do that. And I was interested too. And I realized that this is something I'd like to do, I don't know, maybe for the rest of my life. And I would also encourage all of you to try it. We have plenty of undergraduate students in our lab who are starting by doing some small projects. And if they like it, if they are good at it, if they enjoy it, they can stay and learn more and, I don't know, become a PhD candidate or master candidate or, I don't know, postdoctoral fellow after all. So yeah, this was the starting point, and this is kind of how I got hooked up into science.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Laura, what is your typical day at work doing research on stem cells that you mentioned? What does your typical day look like, if you do have a typical day even?
So right now with the pandemic, it's been a little bit different, but I would say my typical day would be just like waking up, taking a shower, starting my day around 9-10. And I usually divide my day in two aspects: in my dry work, which is just like researching, writing up, and designing experiments, getting everything down for the day, and making a summary of my results. And the other fun part that is actually going into the lab. So basically, if I go into the lab, I either prep my stuff for an experiment or I just do an experiment. And what is really fun, which I really like, that it's not like a 9-to-5 office job, is that you actually go there and you create stuff with your hands. You're handling liquids, you're mixing, you're contributing, and you also see things grow. If you start an experiment and you see small cells and you're like, okay, this is just like the first day, and then you go back and you look, oh, look, I've been taking such good care of them. And it's been 2 weeks and they're now something completely different, and they grew and they're thriving. And I get to like learn what they are. So it's just like a whole process of being there and taking care of your own, well, my own little cells. You know how biologists, people say that you have to go in the weekend sometimes because you have to go take care of your children and give them food. So Yeah, basically that's what I usually do. I do have meetings like a normal job would, but I feel like these meetings are a little bit different. You get to tell them, "Oh, I found this," and they go like, "Really? But how? Why?" And like, "What are you gonna do with this new kind of information you have?" You're like, "Oh," and that's what gets really interesting. So yeah, I love my non-typical job, kind of typical, but just being there and seeing stuff being done with your hands is so rewarding. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. I think your metaphor for like cells being your children is probably something everybody, I'm sure everybody has a child or a child that they take care of in their jobs. So that's awesome. I'm glad you found your children. You've grown your children successfully. I'm not sure what to say to that, but that's awesome. Ariana, what skills do you usually use in your job on a day-to-day basis? Because I think you work in scientific communication, which both Laura and Ghana have to do as well. But yeah, you have a job where communication is in your title. So, what kind of skills do you usually use in your career?
Yeah, so something that I hear a lot from attending panelists in my life is, or attending panels and hearing the panelists talk, is that they say, "Oh my gosh, like my path was so weird and I ended up in this position." And now I'm the one saying it. And one day our listeners will be as well. But I started also doing research. I started in a rat lab and I didn't like going in on the weekends. So then I switched over to computer work and I did MRI imaging. So I didn't have to go in the weekends because computer images don't go anywhere. And so that's kind of the path that I kept following with my master's degree. And between just like sitting at a computer by myself a lot and then also being super isolated during the pandemic, I'm really outgoing and super extroverted. And I thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So then when I discovered science communications, I thought, hey, that's really cool because then I get to talk with people, I get to communicate with people. And I'm sure there'd be a lot more of it if I wasn't working from this room. But yeah, so some skills that I use, for example, I'm a really strong writer. So my favorite part of my graduate school experience was actually writing my thesis and like taking the time to step back from the science and like write about it and read other science, incorporate it into mine, and then produce a thesis from that. So that's something I really enjoyed. And so I try to do as much writing as I can with my job. I also manage all of our social media accounts, so Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, which takes you're doing graphic design, you're writing copy for those posts, and you're having meetings with people about what kind of stuff that you want to put out, what kind of branding materials you want to put out for your organization. So I also have a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions with people about what kind of forward-facing materials we want to create, and stuff like that. So a lot of, I don't know, like communication skills, writing skills, listening skills.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So, kind of a big question. But before that, for all of our audience out there, if you're just joining us, yeah, feel free to pop any questions that you have for our mentors in the chat. And everybody is very excited to answer those questions. And just a reminder to keep those questions respectful and relevant to the discussions that are going on. So throughout your career path, I'm sure that it sounds like you absolutely love what you're doing, everybody here, which is very, very lovely to hear. But I'm sure that didn't come without challenges. So I wanted to hear from everybody what some of the challenges that you kind of see either in your field or industry or your path to the current job that you have right now. So Laura, if we could start with you, that would be awesome.
Great. So I'm an engineer. I'm a biotech engineer. And on my undergraduate years, I did a lot of research. I ended up in a team called IGEM, which is the International Genetic Engineering Machine Competition. And this is going to be relevant, I promise. And in my second year of college, I think, I had math and engineering math can be quite challenging. And well, during this math course, the teacher was really rough, really rough. And I'm usually a good kid. I'm usually an A plus kid. And this was a time where I was like, is engineering really for me or not? What am I doing here? And I failed math 3, I think. And it was the first time in my life I actually felt completely devastated. I was like, how did my brain allow this? Now, then comes the iGEM idea. So after failing math 3, I took it again. It was totally fine. No problem there. But in iGEM, we have a thing called math modeling. And the math modeling part of the competition involves modeling mathematically the biological things you're doing there. If you're growing cells, you want a math model that tells you, how your cells are growing. If you're doing, I don't know, looking at different protein mechanisms of silencing or mRNA, you want to see what's the efficiency of the silencing. You want to see the protein production, you have to model the protein production. And nobody in my team wanted to do the math modeling. Nobody. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. The girl that just failed math 3 is going to do the math modeling. I guess I'll have to do it. And I did it. I did the math modeling. I proved the whole thing. I checked out the efficiency. Honestly, that's one of the moments that people tell you, like, if you can do it, if you trust yourself, you can do it. And I didn't stop. And it's one of the things that was like, wow, really challenging, because I was really thinking, am I an engineer? What I'm doing here? And then I went to present those results in an international genetic competition, and we were awarded a gold medal. And you're just like overcome everything. And just like you have only to push yourself to go over there and not be determined by your failures. You know how embarrassing was it for me to say, oh, I failed math 3, but I managed to also learn from it. I managed to actually do something for it. So I think that was a really challenging moment in my undergrad that I kind of turned it around. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's lovely to hear. Yeah, Ghana, of course.
Yeah, can I just jump in quickly? I just want to give you a praise, Laura, because I know how challenging it is to model biological processes. They are not, they're not designed by mathematicians. They are very random often and uncontrollable. So building these models is very challenging, and it's very important because it really changes the workflow and makes it so much easier if you kind of know in what direction things are going. So yeah, it's a great work.
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot.
That's so lovely. Well, thank you for sharing that story. And I think that really speaks to, I think, one of the biggest kind of skills that I'm sure all of you have used, which is just perseverance and just like keeping on at it and, never giving up. And I think that's such a huge testament to why all of you are where you are today, doing amazing things. So speaking of perseverance as a skill, we have a question from an audience member. What are soft skills that you find useful in career? And I know, Ariana, you brought up a couple of them in terms of communication and writing and things like that. But I'm hoping to hear if anyone wanted to jump in and answer that question, and if you want us to elaborate too, Ariana, about other soft skills that you find useful.
Something I was never known for and something I need to use more than anything else right now is patience, because the world is just crazy. And for example, like today, for my work, I was trying to order some swag materials for a conference that we have coming up, but because we're not all in the same office, I can't just like go to the financial person's office and ask her what our credit card information is for like our online accounts, and I can't go to someone, and I don't even know like where our office is because I've never been there, and we need to get things shipped there. And so I'm like emailing everyone and trying to figure out where things need to go and how I'm supposed to order them. And it takes an incredible amount of patience to work remotely. So that would be my number one, I guess, soft skill right now that I have to use, ironically. Yeah, that's my answer.
I hear you. I think it's just the world we live in now. We have to give a little bit more kindness to everybody. Ghana and Laura, did you have any responses to this question as well?
Yeah, I think similar as Ariana. I think it's really important to like have a really good network and a communication skill set, because most of the time scientists are really quiet. This is something that actually happens. But if you're in the middle of an experiment and something doesn't go your way, and you're like, where can I get this? I need somebody to help me out right now. You have to be like, okay, these are the people in the lab, and you go to them, ask them. If not, you can negotiate a little bit over there. If not, you go to another lab and you ask them, oh, if you give me this, I'll give you this. And they were like, okay, sounds like a good trade. You know, it's just like the little communication and like networking that you have to build on. And a little deeper than that, you have to really trust your team, trust your teammates, trust that they really have your back in case that anything goes wrong, and tell them, okay, I can't be there in 5 minutes. Can you help me with this? And go like, I'm here. Yes, here, have this. Or even deeper than that, like when trying to decide on a project, you actually have to be a really good listener. Good listening skills will make a really huge difference, because sometimes we're just worried about our own thoughts and how to act, but you have to be really aware of all the advice they're giving you, because if you listen well from the beginning, oh my God, wonders. Yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you. Ghana, did you have anything else to add on?
Yeah, I think Ariana and Laura had really great points about patience, especially patience is like a golden thing. So many experiments don't work the way you want. There are so much logistics about getting stuff for your experiments, being there on time when you need them. And this is when, networking can step in. If you are missing something, if you need something, don't hesitate to reach out, right? Because it's still like this big scientific community. And to that, I would add organizational skills, because like this image of crazy scientist who doesn't know what he's doing. It's so not true, and science takes a lot of planning and a lot of thinking things through. Because there are some, multi-step experiments, and if you fail step 1 or 2, you cannot go to step 2 or 3, and it means that you basically just wasting, time, reagents, energy, everything. So, yeah, it takes time to kind of build this organizational capacity, but I find it very, very useful outside of the lab too.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
agree on that. Having a really good lab notebook is like the number one resource you need. Because if not, you don't know what you did in the past, and you're like, yeah, I wrote it in this. I have to confess, sometimes I write it in napkins and I paste my napkins in lab notebook, but they're there.
My life is covered in sticky notes.
Sticky notes, yeah. But we have them. It doesn't matter.
You have workarounds. We make it work. We make it work. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Speaking of, I think Anna, you brought up something that I was kind of curious about. You brought up the mad scientist, trope or misconception that I feel like everybody has. But I mean, all of you guys are scientists, but you do not look like, the mad scientist, white hair coming out of your head and like glasses and you're looking crazy. You guys don't look like that. So I'm wondering if you can maybe speak to any common misconceptions that people have about maybe scientists, science in general, and how do you think we can combat these misconceptions and maybe communicate more effectively? I know that's a bit of a tough question for sure, so anyone can jump on this one.
If like I already mentioned mad scientist, and I'm just going to put that aside. It's a huge topic. It's kind of worth a separate meeting or many meetings about that, and how much efforts we need to put to get rid of this misconception, because it's really hurting. Like I think scientists and people who could be scientists but decided not to because they just had this strange image about it. But I want to say that scientists are often considered like very focused on their research, on their science. It's like they don't see anything outside of their tube or whatever it is they're
Very.
studying.
Mhm.
But this is so not true. Like, I mean, science is interesting on its own, and there is so much you can learn. But people who do scientists, they are normal people, right? They have their interests outside of the lab. They go hiking, they have kids, they have other interests. So, I mean, going into science doesn't mean that you have to give up the rest of your life, right?
To build on that a little bit, if I may. So, first of all, when I first had lab experience after my second year of undergraduate degree, and I was working with rats, and they're unpredictable. They have their own little behavioral minds, and so what I learned was just how difficult science and research really was, and that a lot of the time things don't go according to plan. Um, and so I guess my misconception was that, like, you have your A goes to B and it goes to C, and you're kind of following that like easy trajectory, but that's not true at all. And like life, things just get thrown up in the air all of the time. And so that was my first misconception, I guess. It was a lot more difficult and therefore a lot more rewarding than I ever thought it could be. And then to build on what Gano was saying about having lives outside of science, is that would also be kind of like my advice for some of you. When I was in graduate school, I kind of treated it as a 9 to 5, and then tried to like really live my own life outside of that, to keep my mental health healthy. And one of my coworkers had mentioned, she said, like, you have way more of a social life than I did in school. Like anyone else I know has in school. Like, what's up with that? And I said, well, it's non-negotiable for me. Like, I'm a very social person. I need to spend time with other people. I can't sit at this computer by myself all day, every day. And so, yeah, like we have lives, we have interests, we have hobbies. And so my advice is, when you are entering college or you're going to graduate school or whatever thing you're following, is that that's only a part of your life, and that you need to focus on other things to stay well balanced.
Yeah, adding on to both. So I think like scientists right now, we're making a harder effort to communicate our science in an easier manner, because everybody thinks science is not approachable. Wait, science is approachable. It just depends on like the way you say it. We can make it sound as difficult as you want to, but it's also as easy as you want to. And sometimes we have problems saying really difficult stuff in like a really difficult manner, but we have to work on saying it in a simple way. And we're working on it. It's a misconception that everybody has to work on, but at the same time, science is approachable. Doing science since you're a kid is approachable. Doing science since you're in high school, you can do it. Honestly, you can do it. You just have to put your mind into it. It is gonna be hard, but you can also find it that's not that hard. It's really approachable. And yeah, I think
Lovely. Yeah, so many great tidbit, golden nuggets of advice, as I like to call it, I think, throughout the whole session. We have some questions from Nikola Tesla, which is very exciting. So I'm going to ask those. And actually, Nikola Tesla, your last question is a very good kind of wrap up. So maybe I'll ask the first one that you asked to our mentors, what your favorite area in biotechnology is in, which is just kind of interesting. So maybe if you have any, maybe we could reword that to say, like, if there's anything excited that you're looking forward to see in your industry, building up on that. I'm going to leave this open to anybody.
So biotechnology is so broad nowadays, and a lot of people think, oh, biotechnology goes directly into genetic manipulation or CRISPR-Cas, which is like the most common thing right now, gene editing. And it is really exciting. There's technologies are coming up so fast, and like doing, for example, modified GMOs, genetic modified organisms, is so a hot topic. But I wouldn't say that's my favorite. Honestly, after working with bacteria, working with yeast, genetic manipulation, I think my favorite area right now is working with my babies, my cells. The the mammal system and the mammal cells in the human body is just such a mystery, so complex. It's amazing what our bodies can do. And working right now, looking at how these cells in our own body are able to regenerate and continuously, and there can also be taken as an advantage. I think like that's my favorite part. Well, that's why I ended up studying this. Of course, I really love the parallel of this, which is more technology, which is the induced pluripotent stem cells. So they're cells programmed to be stem cells. And they're cells that have been genetically engineered to become stem cells. And that's a really hot area right now and trending, because if they have the potential to make any type of cell in your body that you want to do, it has really high quality capabilities to make different treatments. Right now, there are a lot of stem cell induced pluripotent stem cell trials, clinical trials, and there are their advantages, there are their disadvantages, but it's a really interesting area as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we are getting close to the time that we have for the session. So I want to end it off with one question to all of our mentors to ask. And that is, for all of our audience that are here today, for all 14 to 16-year-old girls, what is some advice that you give to people who are interested in your line of work? So specifically Nikola Tesla, they asked about how you built up your wet lab experience, especially in high school, and how, if that's what they're interested in, how you can get involved. We can go around. Ghana, did you want to start?
Yep, sure. You know what? I was lucky because I was in the specialized boarding school in the high school. So we had an opportunity to kind of collaborate with university and do some of the stuff that students would normally do. Not every school has that, but I think like when it comes to grades 11 and 12, there are more lab experience in science classes, or like, chemistry classes, or physics, or even like life sciences, anatomy and physiology. A lot of teachers incorporate this hands-on experience. And at this point, anything, like even just holding a flask is helpful. It sounds again so easy and straightforward. Like Ariana said, you do A, you do B, and you do C, but there is so much trouble you can get yourself in. So the more experience you have, the better, right? And if you don't think like, even if you have enough of that experience in school, right, it's always a good idea to participate in science fair projects if those are available. It looks good on the resume, and it kind of helps you build some connections. And the last but not least thing is just to go to a teacher and say, you know what, I would really like to go into this area. Are we going to do some lab? And maybe your teacher will think, okay, it's a good idea to do more lab with my class, right?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ariana, did you want to answer the question too?
Yeah, I guess 14 is a bit young for my scientific growth in life. What happened for me was that I wanted to be an engineer. I was really good at physics, and I was really good at chemistry, and I was really good at math. And so I wanted to be an engineer. And then my mom was like, just take a bio class, just see what happens, because my grandma was a zoologist. And then so I did. I took a grade 12 biology class, so I was 17, a little bit older than that, 14, but then we learned about the brain, and I was like, wow, this thing is really cool. And then so I switched up my whole life and I went into neuroscience instead. And then you could always find me at like the school open houses in the lab dissecting like cow eyes for the audience. So I guess that was my lab experience, but I never did anything like that ever again. But yeah, I guess so my advice would just be to like try a whole bunch of different things and to see what interests you, to see what like captivates you, and then find a mentor, because my grade 12 science teacher was incredible, and I owe my success to her, a lot of it. So find a mentor and explore everything you can.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And then to round us off, Laura.
So I was really lucky that my dad is a chemical engineer, and he's always and a scientist. So he's always pushed me to do science. First of all, he wanted me to do chemical science. So I was really young when I was exposed to my first science project. I was 12 or 13. And he made me do biodiesel from the acorns from our yard. It was terrible and really rewarding. But because when I opened each acorn, it could have a really nice acorn meat inside, or bug, or just like really gross larva. So it was a really interesting experience. But that was in middle school. And from that moment on, I knew I wanted to do research, maybe not in a chemical industry, but research in general. So I went into high school, and in high school, I did several projects, and not because they encouraged us, because I was an annoying nerd and I was trying to tell the teacher I really want to do this. And what's something that inspired me a lot was this Google competition for high schoolers. I'm not sure if it still exists, but this Google high school competition encourages high schoolers to go above and beyond. So I did a little quick pitch for my teachers in high school, and they were like, yeah, sounds good. Let's try to get our Mexican high school name in the Google competition. And I was like, okay, why not? And I figured out that there are a lot of undergrad, also a lot of not graduate colleges in Mexico that also have like tiny little competitions for science for high schoolers, so they can get scholarships. So at the same time, I applied for the Google thing and for the different colleges, and that was my one ticket to get access to the high school labs indefinitely. But wet lab experience in high school is difficult to get. Either you can do what I did, or, as Ariana said, get a mentor. Like, you would be surprised how many PIs or how principal investigators or researchers are willing to take a really eager high school student to learn. So just put your mind into it and grow with that. And yet again, YouTube is our best friend. So if you want to like learn wet lab skills and you do not have access to anything else, but you can take the wet lab skills through YouTube, and that can maybe also give you a ticket to be like, oh, I took all of these courses in YouTube. Dear researcher, can I go join your lab to put them to good use? And I bet they'll say yes. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you so much. That was such, again, lovely golden nuggets of advice, as I like to say. But thank you again so much for joining us today. I learned so much about, about just breaking barriers and the need for it, I think, here today. For our audience members that are out there, we will now be having a bio break and a bit of time to explore our interactive virtual booths. So you can access the booths through the exhibit hall button at the top of the page in Project Board. The next session will start at 6 p.m. PST, so make sure to plan out and pick where you want to go next. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.